focusing on fading the lure and adding a verbal cue as well as a hand signal for quite a few of my behaviors that I'm working with Wish. Some of the behaviors, they don't need a verbal cue because a hand signal is good enough for me, but others I like to have a verbal cue. So an example, I will go through all my behaviors and how I'm fading the lure into just a verbal cue. Are you ready, pups? So for down, it started out where I had the treat in my hand and I just lured her down and I click and treat. So anytime I start fading a lure, I go back to the first step and make it very obvious that what we're working on by making it as easy as possible. Free. Good job. So I'm going to use my treat and I'm going to lure her into the down. Awesome. Free. Good girl. Now I'm going to pretend to get a treat and lure her down. I'm also clicking and feeding her for getting up because that also is a behavior in itself. So if you only reinforce the down and not getting up, your dog can start to not want to get up, and then it's a little bit confusing what the release cue means. Good job. So if you're working on a behavior and your dog starts offering it, and you keep repeating the same behavior, I'm going to reinforce her thinking, oh, you want me to lay down, because that makes it easier to add the verbal cue. Free. Good girl. So now I'm going to say down, and if she doesn't, I'm going to do the luring gesture. So to add the verbal cue, you say the verbal cue a millisecond before you move any muscle to do the visual cue, because you want the verbal cue to predict the behavior. So basically, Wish's down is not on a verbal cue, and as far as I can get at the moment is saying down and doing this with my hand from this height. So my hope is that I can be able to just say down and she lays down without me having to do this. But the first step, is saying down in the way that I've trained it, which was sitting like this, and then like this, saying down and then luring her, and then saying down and seeing if I can fade my hand signal to be higher up. Are you ready? And then finally get rid of it so I can say down. I think she might actually do it because she keeps offering it down. Free. So I'm going to say down, and then I'm going to move my hand. Awesome. Down. Good girl. So once I push the limits and see if she can do it while I'm standing up with no hand signal, I'm going to go back and make it super easy so our success rate during the training session stays high and she doesn't feel frustrated at each step of the way. So, wish free. So now I'm going to go back to making it super easy and just lure her into the down. Quick and treat. Free. Down. Good girl. Free. Down. Good girl. Free. Down. Good girl. Free. Good girl. You also, once you got the behavior on a cue, you also want to feed and feed and feed your dog for not thinking to offer the behavior immediately. So once you're getting the behavior, then you can start feeding the dog for not just offering it to you without the verbal or visual cue. Down. Good girl. Free. Great. Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to work on some other behaviors, but you want to make sure, for example, we've just worked on her doing down over here. I'm not going to work on seeing if I can get her to sit on a verbal cue, because guess what's going to happen? She's going to lay down, because this area I'm standing in is reminding her of the behavior down for the moment. So if I wait and see if she thinks something, she's going to probably think to lay down. However, I can use this area to do a moving behavior, because it's going to be so different, the concept. I'm going to get her to weave my legs. it's going to be so different, she's not going to think to offer the down. So if you wanted to work on adding a cue to a sit or a down or a stand, I suggest working on them in different parts of your, if you only have one room to work on, different corners of the room or in different parts of your house. And then when your dog's got the cues down, then you can start working on them together. Are you ready, pup-ups? Okay, so I'm putting the clicker away, and I'm just going to use a verbal marker. So what I've been doing, yes, is simply luring her through my legs, yes, saying yes as she's moving, and then feeding in the direction that she's going. So I've also been just putting treats down for her to eat, and just like a Pac-Man game where she's following the treats. Good girl. Awesome. And I've also added duration so that she can go for quite a few leg weaves before I add my cue. Because I want to make it easier when I add my cue. So she can weave 3 times before getting a treat without getting frustrated. So when I add my cue and start removing my hand signal, it will be easier because I can mark immediately after adding the cue. Are you ready, puppy? So I've been doing this where she can see my fingers, either with treats or without treats. I like to hold treats in both my hands so that I can quickly deliver a treat to her and I don't have to fumble in between and lose that motion. But you can have no treats and then get a treat out if that's how you train. Are you ready? So here goes. I'm going to add the cue, and it's a very silly cue. It's called legs. Ready? Legs. Yes. Good job. Yes. And after I say my cue, yes, it gets easier. Legs. Yes. So there I messed up. I should have been more clear. Yes. 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 Good job. It's right here. Good girl. So you can see my left leg is not as easy for her. So I might just start with the left leg instead of the right leg. You ready, pups? Here we go. So I'm going to hold my hand out. Yes. Good job. Yes. Good job. Line her up again so that it's all about the left leg entry. Yes. Oops. You kept moving. I was too slow. Yes. Good girl. Yes. Yes. Great. Yes. 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 And then I could go back to adding how many times she goes, how many leg weaves she does, but this time I make it really easy. So I get back the motion. Are you ready? So I get my hand super low so she can see it. And I want to make sure that she's not looking frustrated when she's doing this. So if I see her following my hand with an open mouth trying to snap at the air, then I'm going to have to go back and make it easier. Okay, good job. Well done. Now I'm going to work on spin left and spin right. I call it spin and twirl. So originally how I got the behavior is I had a treat in my hand and I lured her in a big circle. So this direction for me, I'm going to call it twirl. So the first step was getting rid of the treat. So, I pretended to get a treat, lured her in a circle, and then I went and got a treat for her. And then I went back to using a treat. Good girl. You don't have to put it on the floor, but if you think a puppy might take the treat hard while you're training, then it's a good thing to see. Good thing to do. I think she might take the treat a little hard right now, so that's why I'm putting it on the floor. So then you pretend to get a treat. Good girl. And then you start to fade your hand signal. So I'm going to see if I do that, if she can still spin in a circle. So as you saw, she kind of, the circle didn't look so good. So I'm going to go back and try and regain the nice looking circle with a little bit of help. So as I fade my lure, I don't make my behavior deteriorate a little bit. Oh yeah, she's filming, huh? Good girl. Good girl. So you can practice at the front and the side, so that if you're planning on having the signal at the front and the side, it won't be hard to do in the future. Good girl. So I want to start calling it twirl. So I'm gonna say twirl, and then I'm gonna do my hand signal. Wish. Twirl. Next time I say the verbal cue, I want to make sure that she does the behavior after it. So I need to make my gesture more obvious. Then, to fade the hand signal, I don't have to say the verbal cue before it. So I can do a big gesture and then do a little gesture and see if she'll do it. But the time that I'm going to add my verbal cue is before I do a gesture that's very obvious. So that I don't just say twirl and then she doesn't do it because I gave a small gesture and she doesn't know that yet. Ready? So I'm going to say, wish, twirl. Good girl. Twirl. Good girl. Also, if your dog sits while you, just before you've asked for a behavior, like that, if your dog's sitting, it's going to be very hard for them to think to get up to move for some dogs. For other dogs, it won't be a problem. So I'm going to say twirl. Good girl. Good girl. So now I'm just fading the finger gesture and seeing if I can get her to turn. But from the point that we're at with that is about this much. And she can turn like that, but any higher, any less, and she's not moving. So we can't really push it any further for the video. Good job. Good girl. Maybe from the side you're a little bit better. Yeah. So even if the dog does a little head turn in the right direction, but then turns back, you can click that and then next time just make sure to make the gesture more obvious. Let's not make you dizzy. So we'll move on to the next exercise. Good girl. We'll work on the other direction. So the other direction is called spin. So, oops. I'm going to say spin, and then I'm going to do a big gesture. Spin. Good girl. Now I want to see if I can get the gesture to be a little bit smaller. She seems better with this side. Whoa, a little bit dizzy. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Awesome, and I'll stop there. Good job. Okay. Another thing we've been working on is backwards weaving, which is 3 behaviors. Turning backwards to the right, turning backwards to the left, and just backing up. So when the puppy goes through your legs, or a dog goes through your legs, they're backing up. So at first, I simply just turned my puppy's head to the right and to the left, and just lured any little back foot movement. So as soon as I saw a little foot movement backwards, turning backwards, I said yes. If your puppy's not offering that, you can spin them in a circle and then see if you can keep going with the momentum. So you spin the puppy in a circle and yes! Mark that moment that the hips keep turning. Yes! Good job. Yes! Good job. And then hold your lure higher up. Yes! And then have no treat. Yes! And then do the same on the other side. Good job. You can also use a stool to teach the rear end awareness. Wait, you get your puppy to do paws up. Good job. And then lure it, yes, the foot movement to the left and the right. Yes, good job. Great. Smooth on the way. Now you're going to put your paws up, aren't you? So, I also practiced on this side. Yes. Good job. Oh, you want it to go between. Yes. She can eat and train at the same time. Oops. There I messed up, so I'm going to give her a free treat and next time try to turn her more. Yes. Okay, so to get that movement, because she can turn, and then as soon as my hand disappears, she pops her head back behind my leg. What I'm doing there is I'm lining her up so that she's between my legs, and then I'm making the treat disappear behind my leg. Yes, so she has to look for it around the other side of my leg. Yes, good job. You can also work on that with the dog here, and then as you move both treats in both hands behind, yes, most likely they're going to walk backwards to find the treat. Sometimes they'll walk around here, but then you can just start again and make it easier. Yes. Good job. So now we've got that, I'm going to start fading my hand signal to be higher up. So you can see here on this side, yes, I might have to support her more. But on my left side, I can have my hand quite high up. And then I'm just going to make my hand signals less and less obvious until I can add my verbal cues for this behavior. Good girl. Good girl. So you can see her movement on this side is much stronger than the one on the right side. So I'm going to support her better. Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Yes. And maybe rehearse this side more than the other side for a while.